Well, the Doug Ford campaign, I guess, has decided that Pierre Poilievre is making too many inroads and has decided to go after him for many of the Liberal talking points. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. There's a fella named Corey Teneke, and he is the guy that has led Doug Ford to 3 consecutive wins. He has some opinions on what Pierre Poilievre is doing. He believes that it's called political malpractice. Like, I don't even know what that means. It's just a made-up term because the guy is desperate for some attention. And he was on a couple of these podcasts. Now, one of the podcasts that he said it on, there was a lot of profanity he used. And so I don't want to show it. I'm not going to waste my time with some guy who can't formulate a sentence without cursing and swearing, who thinks that by cursing and swearing, he's making some statement or something significant. It just reminds me of people that are on the far left. They can't say a word without name calling and swearing. I can always tell the difference between the bots and the real people in my comments, for example, because the bots are all articulate and they're giving days and all this stuff. And the people, they just come in, they say one sentence and 50% of it is profanity and name calling. Anyway, let's get back to the point. So this guy, Corey Teneke, he thinks that it's all Pierre Poilievre's fault. And he's speaking from such a position of ignorance. He's like completely elbows deep. He is dove right into any of the mainstream information that he's being passed. He wants to put himself forward as a political analyst without ever looking at the reality of the situation. And I wanted to let you hear some of it because I really think it's a testimony to some of the people that are getting opinions put out there.
Because we blew a 25-point lead. That's why. I know it's uncomfortable for people to hear that said out loud, but like it's in every poll and every poll aggregator, the numbers are the numbers. And I don't believe that the Conservatives don't believe in polls. Like I just don't believe that that's true. I think that the polls are the polls.
Before I address the ridiculousness of Teneke's comments, I will show you what has inspired this. There's 2 things that have brought this on, and one of them is the rally in Brampton, which was quite large. A couple of individuals showed up with this poster and some shirts saying, "Do you believe the polls?" Because I believe that they're trying to inspire people. However, that's why you heard him say, "I don't believe that they don't believe the polls. The polls are the polls." You know what I mean? Like, of course, these individuals are not necessarily associated with the Poilievre campaign. So him and the rest of the far left trying to project that onto the Poilievre campaign is kind of childish, immature, and should make all of you very suspicious. Because you only need to make people feel that way if you don't feel your own position is very strong. Otherwise, they'd be like, well, whatever, let them say whatever they want. But that's not what they're doing. And that's a clue. That's an important clue. Of course, all of you regular viewers of the Canadian Shield know my position on polls. I have told you that they are easily manipulated. I have told you that there is big, huge pieces of data that are never included in the final results. I've told you how they can put these questions online, and for all you know, it's one guy answering the same 15 polls with the bots. The polling is not what it used to be because it's too easily manipulated. The algorithm is too easily manipulated. There's so many things about it that are just can be turned against one person or another. And I believe that these individuals are just trying to let everybody know that that's how they feel, that they feel that the polls that they're hearing out of the far left media and most of the pollsters, some of which have literally gone online, gone on record as saying they will do whatever it takes to make sure that Pierre Poilievre doesn't win. I mean, how can you trust a poll from an individual who talks that way, for example? Now, getting back to Teneke, he says the polls are the polls are the polls, and I just spoke to that. But then he says we lost a 25-point lead. He lost a 25-point lead. So, as I've told you all, and is bared out by the history, Pierre Poilievre's popularity has always been right in the 39%. 39, maybe it was 41 at one point. Yes, that might have manifested itself into a lot of seats because the left had split their vote. They had some for Jagmeet, they had some for the Bloc, and they had some for the Liberal Party. Nobody wanted to get behind one leader. So now they've decided, the left, that just like they did in France, and just like they did in Germany, and just like they've done in a couple of other countries that are now economic disasters, they all decided to get behind one far left individual so that they could have no split of their vote. So rather than tell yourself that Pierre Poilievre has lost any points, which this individual who claims to be a conservative insider should understand, but I guess he doesn't understand basic math. I guess he's just reacting instead of thinking. We can see that there was a time, you can remember not that long ago, when people were like, why are 27% of Canadians still supporting the Liberals and Justin Trudeau? But at the time, the NDP was rating around the 18 to 20%. Now they are what, 6 to 8? So where did that percentage go? Well, it moved over to the Liberals. And we could see that Jagmeet Singh can't even get a single supporter to show up at his rallies. So it's not hard to determine where many of the votes that Mark Carney is getting, right? So that's a huge portion coming out of the NDP and going over to the Liberal Party. Now, I don't know what is going on in Quebec in the sense of in the mind of the voter, but I can tell you that according to those same polls, many of the people have left support of the Bloc and gone over to the Liberals because they prefer poverty over nationalism, I guess. I don't know. I won't speak to that. I will say that the numbers, however, that the left has decided to get behind the Liberal Party altogether. And that's what you're looking at. That's what's being reflected. And if this individual is not wise enough to understand that, you have to wonder how he got his job. Or it's just maybe he has a different job. Maybe he's into communications or something like that. Because I can tell you right now that the popularity of Doug Ford has plummeted in the last 2 weeks. Because he's done nothing. He did a lot of talk. He got his votes, and now he's done nothing. He's waiting on the federal government to do something all of a sudden. While the auto industry gets decimated in Southern Ontario.
The gender gap is huge right now in this election campaign. And, you've got to wonder what the Conservatives are thinking, having their leader, attacking a female reporter in a way that I described as being gross. I think it was really unhelpful to them. That clip has gone viral. It's making its way around the internet, and I think it's turning women off even more from this campaign. So,
first of all, there's always a gender gap. Most women, until they achieve a certain age or a certain fiscal responsibility, always vote to the left. Until they realize that the far left or the left-leaning governments, the liberal governments, are taking all of their money off of their paycheck, and then they decide that they would rather have more money in their pocket, and they switch their vote. However, I will set aside the ridiculousness of that guy's comment for now, and I will just show you the clip that he is referring to.
Mr. Poilievre, Laura Stone, Globe and Mail. I want to ask about...
How did you like our rally last night?
Well, I wanted to ask about your rallies.
Thank you.
And whether size matters. I actually want to know about your rallies and what your strategy is and who you're talking to, because you bring up things like woke mob, Century Initiative, bulldozing the CBC, I'm exaggerating, but getting rid of CBC HQ. At what point are you just talking in an echo chamber to people who already feel that way, or do you feel like these are broadening the tent of support to Liberal or undecided voters to get them on board with your campaign?
I think it's pretty broad. I think how many people do you think we had last night?
Thousands.
Well, that's pretty obvious. I think you can be more precise than that.
I don't. I mean, the party said 10,000 registered. There's reports of 15. I really can't say.
One last question. When was the last time we had a rally that big in Canada?
I don't know. I've never been to a political rally that big, I don't think.
You know a lot about politics.
Well,
You're a very well-informed person. I know that if there were a bigger rally than that, you would know about it. I think so. But I think it was pretty incredible. Were any of you there? Yes. Magic, eh? Wow. Incredible. Listen, I think to have 10 or 15,000 people at one political rally, this is a movement like we've never seen because people want change. They want to put our country first for a change. They've seen that after the lost Liberal decade of doubling housing costs, of rising crime, of taxes out of control, of our economy weak and under America's thumb, that they can't afford to live. And what they want is a new Conservative government that will put Canada first for a change. And that's why my speech talked about axing taxes, greenlighting housing construction, expanding our energy sector to bring home our jobs so that we can put Canada first for a change. That was the message yesterday, and that is the message that Canadians are going to vote for change on election day. Thank you.
I have covered Pierre Poilievre since I started this. I haven't really been at this that long, roughly about a year, maybe a little longer. And I have covered, one of my biggest videos ever was Pierre Poilievre shredding a reporter. I have seen Pierre Poilievre take down a reporter day after day after day. There was a time when it felt like they were going through a rotation. They would bring one out, he would turn them into a hamburger. They would bring out another one. They would try a woman. They would try a man. They would try an LGB. They would try all these different things. And he is quite capable and competent. He's very sharp. He's very articulate. And he does it without name calling. Sometimes he has to shout over them because they're just shouting over him like you're being rude. I mean, think of the idea that this woman thinks she's a professional and she made a body image joke. Of course, men being men, they found it funny. However, something tells me they wouldn't be finding it funny if the situation was reversed and Poilievre asked her if size matters. Nonetheless, I would say to you that this is probably one of the most gentlest interactions I've ever seen. If the internet is upset about this, I'd be surprised. However, many of Poilievre's followers enjoy seeing him take the press apart. They do so because they don't feel they have a voice. They see the press closing out the independents. They see the press saying things that they do not agree with. They're not stupid. See, that's the problem. You feel that because you went to journalism school, you know more about truth than they do. And they don't agree with you at all. But of course, you can't let them speak, right? You silence them, you cancel them, you run over them. You use your corporate money to crush them. So when we see somebody that comes out to the microphone and easily puts you in your place, we cheer for that. Not because we're cheering for him, but because we don't like the way you're treating us. However, leave all of that aside. If you didn't understand that about some of Pierre Poilievre's followers, then that's fine. Leave all of that aside, though, and just hear how a week prior, across the country, how Pierre Poilievre interacted with another reporter, a reporter who he knew, who was clearly hostile to the conservative position.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. My name is Bill Hutchins with Kingstonist.com.
Hi, Bill.
How are you?
Great. How did you like our rally yesterday?
It was nice. Big crowd.
Very big crowd. How many people do you think were there?
3,000 to 4,000.
It's pretty big. When was the last time you had that in Kingston?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But I understand too that a lot of your supporters came out from across the region as well, not just this riding. So
that was nice of them in this rain. It was a rough night to drive in. I don't know. Did John A. MacDonald have crowds like that when he was the MP here?
He may have had a few crowds around City Hall back in the day. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask you about one of the questions I've been.
We can learn a few things from these examples. Taniki, on the one hand, thinks that Pierre Poilievre talking and asking the reporter what she thought about the rally, then asking the male reporter what he thought about the rally, but doing that a week before didn't bother the internet or bother Taniki at all. So we can see there's a lot of discrimination going on in that. I mean, on the one hand, are you trying to say that she's too weak to handle a little bit of an interaction? Because I don't think that that's something that she would agree with. Or is it somehow that you just feel that he should generally never talk to a presser to get to the bottom of the issue? Or are you upset that he told her that she has a lot of influence, a lot of understanding of politics? I find it all very strange that when the same reaction happened between the two of them, for some reason, your only concern with your popped collar is the way that he spoke to the Globe and Mail reporter. The Globe and Mail reporter, who has a history, the Globe and Mail, of going after Pierre Poilievre now for years. We can see that the Kingstonist individual was there to talk about the John A. MacDonald statue and how he wanted to diminish the impact that the rally had, and Pierre Poilievre was able to turn that around. And we can see that the woman wanted, the Globe and Mail individual wanted to turn how to minimize the impact and say that it was only an echo chamber. When there's 10 to 15,000 people, you're not in an echo chamber, you're in a movement. When there's only 100 or 200, such as in the example of Carney, that's an echo chamber. That's only the people that already agree with you. What I also would point out is that for all of their talk about, equality and all the rest of it, Mark Carney doesn't allow any independent news on the grounds that he's having a rally in. He doesn't even let them on the property. They can't walk outside and ask people questions. Nothing. He has his private security escort them off 6 or 7 deep because the guy has, a cell phone and a little Rode microphone. By contrast, Pierre Poilievre knew both of those reporters. Those hostile, far-left, mainstream, corporate reporters were in his rally. They didn't throw them off the property. They even answered a question for them. So why is that not coming across from Mr. Teneke? Why does he feel that it's a problem for Pierre Poilievre to ask a question, how did you enjoy the rally, of the man in Kingston, but then the individual in Edmonton, because she is of the opposite gender, reputedly, asked her the same question, and somehow it offended him with his popped collar? Does that make sense to anybody? Because that makes no sense to me. That just seems to me that he's speaking from a position of bias. He's saying that you should never behave that way towards an alleged female, but it's okay to talk that way toward an alleged male. And you want to think that I should listen to this man's opinion? I mean, equality is equality is equality. Are you saying that the woman is too soft? Or are you saying the guy is too hard? I mean, what are you saying in there? Are you saying that they need to be treated differently because they're not equal? Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds to me like you might be indicating to yourself and to the people around you that he should treat one differently than the other based on the way that they are identified at birth. Seems a bit strange. Now, all of that far left mumbo jumbo aside, all of that, DEI and all that stuff, that's just trying to prove the point of using their own words back on them. The reality is that equality is equality, and that he wasn't rude to either of them. He smiled, he answered their questions, he said, thank you very much. There was no issue there. And if that woman was upset about it, or if that man was upset about it, this is the first time learning of it. It seems to have upset Teneke more, because he believes that somehow women under 25 are all of a sudden going to be voting conservative. I bet if we look at the numbers for Doug Ford, we won't see that a lot of women under 25 voted for Doug Ford, because women under 25 tend to vote on the left side of the aisle. It's just it's a thing. Everybody knows it. And then over 35, the tendency of a woman is to vote onto the right side of the aisle, because now she's got a house and money and things to worry about. I'm not telling you out there that if you're under 25 or over 35 that you vote a certain way. I'm only telling you what the demographics play out when they study these things. That's all. How you vote is your business. Though I would finish up by saying that if you're seriously thinking about voting for the zero carbon, for the net zero, you should remember that one of the things that they will do is take away your clothes, because that will cost too much carbon footprint. Petroleum products are heavily in your life as a female. And one of the ones that you should look at is hair products and makeup and hygiene products. Without petroleum products, you ain't getting any of those. This is why people come to North America or to the West and they finally discover them. But in the third worlds, they don't have them, because you require manufacturing. Most makeup starts with oil-based stuff. So I should cover that in a different video. I just want to, if you're listening and you're all up in arms, appreciate that I'm looking out for you. I believe that if you really care about your own future, you will vote for where the money is, not for where the ideology is. Now, that's your decision, your prerogative. I don't believe that Pierre Poilievre said anything incorrectly to that Globe and Mail reporter, Laura, something, I forget her last name. I do believe that this Teneke fella going on CTV and acting like he's going to be the savior of the far left vote is a bit bizarre in my mind. And I suppose that lends a lot of credibility as to why Doug Ford has slipped so far over to the liberal side of the aisle, while many people that look at Doug Ford no longer consider him to be a conservative. I'll leave that for another time. You let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. I'll talk to you next time.